Hello. Okay. All right. Thanks for your patience to everybody online. We're going to call this meeting to order now. It's 6:08 p.m. on December 11th, 2024. And this is a public meeting of the Portland Committee on Community Engaged Policing. Full committee meeting. Let's get started with some introductions. We'll start with our PCEP members, most of whom are with us in the room. So I will just pass it to my right and you all can keep going. Thanks.
Hello. Oh, hi. My name is Odelia Zuckerman. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a youth member of PCEP and the co-chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Hi, my name is Carrie Driver. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a member of the Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Hi, I'm Kyle Robinson. I am a member of the Settlement and Policy Subcommittee. Tia.
My name is Tia Palafox, and my pronouns are she, her, and I'm the co-chair of the Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Leslie Martinez, my pronouns are she, her, and I've been a PCEP member since 2022.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Schofield. I like to use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently the co-chair of the full committee. In the past, I've been the co-chair for the Community Engagement Subcommittee.
Hello, I'm Noelle Cuthair. I'm the new member of PCEP.
And I think we have a couple PCEP members online as well. Feel free to unmute and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Viva Campo. I am another one of the new members to the committee.
Hi, Kip Silverman. I've been a member for a little over a year. I use he, him pronouns and co-chair of the Settlement and Policy Subcommittee. Thanks for coming tonight.
Great. All right. I think that's all our members. And then we can move on to city staff. Anyone from the monitor, PPB, feel free to just jump in. In the room here, I'm Dory Grabinski, PCEP program manager, and we also have our facilitator with us.
Hi, everyone. Afrida Davis, pronouns she, her, facilitator.
And go ahead on the Zoom.
I'll jump in. Hi, everybody. Stephanie Howard, work in Mayor Wheeler's office, she, her pronouns. Good to see you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Jovic. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Deputy Chief for the Portland Police Bureau.
And then I'm in the room. I'm Liz Taylor. I'm the program coordinator for PCEP.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ames, she, her pronouns. I am a deputy city attorney.
Good evening, I'm Russell Bloom. I'm an associate monitor with the monitoring team, MPS and Associates. Hope you're all well.
Good evening, Antoinette Edwards, associate monitor, and she, her queen.
And community members, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat if you are with us virtually. All right. And let's move on to our community agreements. Noelle, would you read our community agreements?
So community agreements, we have listen actively and respectfully, share airtime, be present and open to new information and perspectives, assume positive intent, respect each other, respect the group, speak your own truth, communicate directly, honestly, and respectfully, ask questions to clarify, call out bias, and be okay with ambiguity.
Great. So thanks so much everyone for being here. Thanks for Dory for helping us get organized. Today's meeting is really a chance for us to just kind of recap 2024 this past year. And before that, we will do some status conference hearing prep that's coming up on January 7th. So we need to talk about what we want to present there. And then eventually we'll get into just kind of thinking about so PCCEP, we had met, most of us had met last week for sort of a private meeting to kind of prep for this today, to talk about some areas of focus that were all on our minds, those who were able to attend. We had a pretty good discussion, had a good list. So looking forward to sharing that today. And then, yeah, moving forward with 2025 project planning, which, we did this exercise last year and it was really helpful. And I think it really kept us on track. So I'm excited to do that exercise again today. And then, of course, we'll have open public at the end. We'd love your input, the community's input on how we're moving forward and what was discussed tonight. Yeah. All right, we were going right into it. So we have the status hearing coming up on January 7th. And PCCEP as usual is expected to have a report. We've got a couple ideas regarding police community relations is something that we had brought up last week when PCCEP had met to do some planning. Adelia, can I put you on the spot because you started? Okay, thank you. Okay.
Okay, no, I'm saying we'll lead into that discussion.
Okay.
You can just
Read the slide.
pretty
Dorian's like, just read the slide. Okay, well, so so again, we are expected to present and looking to talk about one of the subjects, which is our concerns around public concerns that have been shared with PCCEP about police and community relations. And so we have a couple ideas we'd like to discuss tonight so we can get some community input. So one of those will be to designate a representative for PCCEP to speak on behalf of the committee on January 7th, if anybody has that availability. So yeah, we have to agree on all the topics that we want to represent that will be presented in front of the judge. And they'll send their statement to the committee for review about a week before the hearing. So we'll need to have that discussion so we can get that prepared to get sent on time. So yeah, we do not require a formal vote on the statement, but we need to agree on the topics. And then think of this as authorizing the designated persons to cover certain topics in their own words, right? So we will have a statement, but ultimately the person goes up and uses their own words on how to describe that.
Yeah, the reason I said it's framing is because I think so now we can have a little bit of a discussion about I think it makes sense to start with the topics that you all would like that statement to cover, what you would like to report to the judge, and then maybe we can figure out who you would like to represent the committee, which it's also important that those people be available, but then who feels qualified to speak on those topics that you've identified. Anyone want to start in terms of topics? Anyone have initial thoughts?
Yeah. One.
Let's say our names when we speak because they can't see us that well.
Okay, Odelia here. I think one thing that would be important to touch on, especially because PCCEP is in like self-monitoring mode, sort of. I don't know all the language around this, but I think we were under the impression that PCCEP would have a staff devoted to community engagement. So I think it would be important to kind of bring that up and ask for it because we should have that. Yeah, what do other folks think?
Carrie here. Yes, I agree. It says in the PCCEP plan, which is part of the settlement agreement, that we'd get staff to support admin and outreach. And right now we only have 1.5 staff, and it seems like we need at least 2, if not, and 2 plus the outreach. And I guess the only other thing, and I don't know if this is the place for it, is 148 clause of the settlement agreement had information about the stops data reporting, and we might want to put in something from veil of darkness. If it was the place for it, maybe not.
Could you say that again? Because I was a little.
I was too. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Could
okay.
you say the second part?
The
again?
second part, the other 2 areas, which I recommend that we stay somewhat focused in the settlement hearing, because I felt like last time we had so many points, it was hard to get the strength of any one point across. So staff is my number 1. I did notice that in the settlement agreement, when they talk about the stops data reporting, and we've recently requested the veil of darkness, I don't know, get an extra set of ears on that. And then the other thing was, in the PCEP plan, part of the settlement agreement, we talk about police presence at our meetings every 3 months. And we have had police presence, to thank you tonight, Beauty Chief, and just looking at that and thinking, has it met the requirements, and are we happy with that? Something to discuss.
Yeah, this is Ashley Schofield. Yeah, it feels kind of straightforward. This, thanks for making that point, Carrie, about just maybe keeping it short and sweet a little, just to get a point across. And I think this staff conversation's been around for a while, and it just kind of keeps getting, put in the parking lot. And I think as we try to think about what 2025 could look like, I'm sure it's going to look like, how do we do more engagement work? And so that would just be a really good question to get answered. Oh, Kip, your hand's up.
Yeah, Kip Silverman. Wanted a second, third, or fourth the additional staff, which I believe was written into the original PCEP, but hasn't been fully fulfilled, if that's the way to phrase it. Also, I did not get a chance to look at the agenda till right before the meeting. So I guess this is a point of order question. Are we trying to decide what we want to present right here and now, or do we have the opportunity to think on it and converse via email?
Yeah, I think we talked about this last week too. Since this is our last public meeting before the status conference, the idea would be to at least identify the big picture topics, because as we all know, in the fragmented email world of email, it's very hard to kind of identify consensus around things, and we want to do that in public when we can anyways.
Of
So
course, yeah.
when it comes to details, we can definitely figure those out via email. But I think as far as the big picture topics go, this would be the time to name those and hopefully find consensus. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so, Kip, did you have any topic areas you wanted to add while we're still on you?
Not off the top of my head right now, no.
Cool. Well, I think also it's important to address why the staff person would be useful to our work, and I think we can all do that fairly easily, of we exist because of community engagement and because of community, and to keep doing this work and engaging meaningfully, we need that engagement, and sometimes it doesn't always feel like we have it. And that's because like there's not enough time in the day for that. And if there was a staff person devoted to that, that would be so, so helpful. So I feel like that's really the gist of it for me. And it's also required, so that helps too. Yeah.
Sorry, pasta. Leslie Martinez, PCEP. I just wanted to call out, like, just following up on what Odelia said. It's literally in our committee name, so it makes sense that we have that support.
Yeah, Ashley Schofield. Yeah, I think it's, I think, because in my head, I'm like, oh, well, the city's like got a budget shortage and like, how will this go down the pipeline? But I think at the end of the day, it's just like this mandated thing that hopefully I think, maybe PBB can also, or let me scratch that. I was going to say something else, but I haven't thought that out. But just that thinking of like the new government structure and just, I know there's been talks of, maybe we could go out into each district, right? Like get out into the community. And that's been really hard to do, I think, without this like specific engagement staff member, specifically focusing on engagement and outreach. And then one other thing I wanted to add about what we could talk about and, keeping it short and sweet, but also is there room to say, here's what PCEP's done this last year since we've, is there any updates to the last time we met in front of Judge Simon? I think I would like to say that conversation around our collaboration and relationship with PBB, I think there has been some steps towards that. So I don't know. To your point, like of how just an ongoing conversation, maybe the accomplishments of, having these meetings with them to talk about topics like RRT and as of recently, the Jew Knightley shooting and just I don't know, maybe I'm going down a rabbit's hole, but thinking of like accomplishments or things we've done.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Like, I think that's a good, I mean, it doesn't have to take up most of the time, but I think recapping what happened, maybe starting off that way, just recapping some successes from the quarter, or since last hearing, and then going into why we need more support.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that could like kind of set up that conversation.
Is there some consensus here? Everyone's feeling okay. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah.
Not yet. That's later, yeah.
I was just saying there are so many different content topics we've been discussing, and the only thing that wasn't brought up yet was the contact surveys. I want to make sure we circle back to that. It's really important to keep working on that from 2023 or 2022.
Okay. I am hearing consensus, I think, online and in the room about this topic from PCEP members. So this is one of those where I think you can figure out exactly, well, the representatives can figure out exactly what they're going to say, and then they'll send you their statement for kind of review, not necessarily wordsmithing. And then the other threads I heard were the potentially mentioning the Veil of Darkness addition to the PPB stops data. That would be maybe more of a summary of some work that you've done, as well as I think kind of continuing to build relationships with PPB and meeting presence. Anything else? Yeah, I would see that as just an intro sort of section, recapping a little bit of PCEP work. I agree with what Carrie said about, based on what we've learned from prior status conference hearings, keeping it really focused makes a lot of sense to me. Does that make sense to other people? Seeing nods, okay.
This is Ashley Schofield again. I just kind of wanted to, also step back and acknowledge the new members and just, I know I remember my first status hearing conversation and it was like way over here, and it may not be for you, but I just wanted to pause and say, like, do you have any questions? Anything popping out? What? Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. I'll do what I can do. So, they're quarterly status hearings in front of Judge Simon, right? And yeah, we're mandated to present kind of what we've been doing the last quarter, the last time we were in front of him. And usually, yeah, you've seen the process. We usually pick somebody, which we haven't done, which we still need to do, who's gonna go in, spend their morning. Usually it's like supposed to be an allocated an hour. I've been there and it's been like 4 hours, so it is time commitment. And I think maybe we can talk about who shared that commitment. I know it's a hard one to ask. I have a full-time job, so it's really hard for me to get away. Usually I brought my work computer and just sat there and try to do both. But and so yeah, you hear from so you hear from all the parties involved in the settlement, from DOJ, PPB, the city's attorneys. So you kind of get a kind of overview of what everyone else is doing within this settlement. Missing anything important? Sure. Yeah. So this is the time in front of Judge Simon, right? The person who is really kind of deciding at the end of the day how far this settlement continues. And right. So if there's things we need, this is a good time to get in front of them. So yeah, I think that's why we really want to focus on this staff, additional staff, because it's been on the pipeline for a really long time, and it's something that's mandated. So we want to push for it. We want to help make Dorian's job easier and better, and really kind of, I think we've had these big ideas for community engagement, but they've just been kind of stalled because we don't have that. We're all volunteers, and then not having that extra staff. Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Okay. Sure. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay, so I think we're pretty clear on this. If we agree that it makes sense to keep it pretty focused as well, it seems like this is the thing that's most the biggest priority. So I think we can just run with this, and there are absolutely portions of the PCEP plan, which is an amendment to the settlement, that you can quote and yeah, when you present and talk about how you feel that need is not being met. So yep, that sounds like a plan to me. So the next step would be to identify who would like to speak on that, and who the committee would like to speak on that. So I guess the criteria being, if you feel qualified to represent the topics discussed, and then the committee can kind of co-sign your interest in that. And I think we could definitely have more than one person. So yeah, and including folks online, if you're interested in taking this role on, and in the room, feel free to raise your hand.
Cool. So Carrie raised her hand. Thank you.
Carrie's hand is up. I see Kip's hand.
I'd be happy to be back up. I checked my calendar. I can be available that day. I can move meetings around. So
All right. Anyone else interested? Ashley, are you signaling interest? Okay.
I have like a major work thing that.
Okay. I couldn't tell. Anyone else? Okay. I just want to make sure. Yeah. Oh, anyone can come and watch for sure. Yeah. I will be there. It is really, it's very interesting. And I think the first time I went was it really crystallized how all the parts work together in my mind of this whole settlement and this thing that we're a part of. So I highly encourage coming, if you can. Good learning experience. But it sounds like Kip and Carrie are the only volunteers and PCEP members. Are you in support of these representatives? I think
Who's missing again?
Devante, Ronick, Conrad, and Jorge are not here.
I think I already said online.
Yeah.
They do know.
They do know.
Yeah, they do know when they.
Yeah, and this isn't a formal vote
Yeah,
so
right.
much. And also, if they're not present to vote, they can't really put their hat in the ring or vote for it. That's sort of rules of engagement.
We'll have some dialogue. Probably via email, just like how do we help with those talking points and stuff. So they'll be involved if they want to in that way.
Okay. We all right with this plan? Okay. All right. I think we are good to go on that. So Carrie and Kip and staff and the rest of the committee will work on preparing a statement and figure out how they want to work together on presenting it, and then they will run that by you, by the full committee prior to January 7th, and get any input, and we'll go from there. Okay. Great. Babs asked, I'm assuming, will the status conference be on Zoom? Can the public view? No, the status conference is not available via Zoom. You can't record video in a federal courtroom. You can get a phone line access, like to listen in. Yep. So Sarah put the answer in the chat there. But it's generally okay, the Zoom is reserved for those who sign up to testify. Yeah, so it's not available to stream to watch, but you can listen to it. Hope that answers your question. Okay, are we ready to move on? Okay, pass it back over to Ashley.
All right. So yeah, looking back at the year, thinking about what we did. So one of the major things that we do here at PCEP is cultivate input and everything to eventually get to a recommendation. So so earlier this year, we made a recommendation to fund and stabilize and expand the Portland Street response, which was approved back in April 17. We moved forward with recommendation to codify PCEP, which we got both both approvals for both of those recommendations from Mayor Wheeler. Recently, we have included sent forward a recommendation to include a veil of darkness analysis in PPB's annual stops data report. So we're looking forward to hearing back from Chief Day on that recommendation. And then, currently we are still in progress of working on another recommendation to correct PBB's communications about the 2022 Normandale Park shooting. And so we've had a couple opportunities for community input and thinking around that. And recently we had met with Chief Day, a group of us to walk through um, that possible recommendation. And I don't think we've done a public, so I'll do that really quickly here. Because we did that last week with the other members. So yeah, we met with the help of Stephanie Howard. We had a meeting with Chief Day, again, to talk about what this recommendation could look like. And it was a really good conversation. We were really excited to hear Chief Day be so readily available and excited also to, um, you know, do exactly what we wanted to do in the recommendation, which is a correction of the reporting and the messaging that came from PBB about the Normandale Park shooting. And then also in addition to acknowledge kind of what that series of events sort of did for the public and did for that transparency and trust and with the PBB and the community. And it was a really good conversation. We were really thrilled to hear Chief Day be ready to move forward with what we were already going to recommend. We have decided even with that enthusiasm, we are going to move forward with the recommendation. And Chief Day was, also very excited about that because, I think it leaves room for sort of putting something in writing. It leaves room for accountability and a timeline, which I think Chief Day was interested in having as well. We were hoping to get a recommendation to think about today, but there really was no rush. And we'll be working on that and hopefully have something to present to the full committee and the public for input soon. In the new year, early January. But PBB and the Chief Day are looking forward to that, looking for that recommendation and responding to it. So yeah.
And important on that is that this is just one recommendation related to that. This was kind of what we decided as a committee. We weren't like, this is a comprehensive recommendation to address everything around that issue. This was just our initial recommendation that we wanted to do now to give it timely, to get that update in a timely manner and then continue working on that.
Yeah, and we had a good conversation with Chief Day about I think something we've talked about a lot in the space around collaboration with PBB and collaboration in the sense that we're really connecting we're really creating what that community engagement policing looks like. And it, kind of involves everybody being in the room and so we had some encouraging conversations around. So we're really excited to see I might butcher your name, Chris Chovik, here, Deputy Chief PBB. Those little things of showing up and listening was what we talked about with Chief Day. So we're really excited to see that tonight. Yeah. We'll get back. Yeah, we can get back to that. Okay.
I want to say something about this too. So my name is Noelle Kaiher again. I'm the new member of PCCEP. And when we're talking about the Normandale Park shooting and some recommendations about that, I wanted to bring up too that the anniversary of that event is coming up on February 19th for the third year anniversary. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as far as the timeline, when to get public comment by and a solution on how to move forward and also kind of honor that.
I will, thank you for that. So something that Chief Day relayed to us as well as Stephanie is that the city is working on sounds like they're working on a permanent memorial now that it's coming up to that 30-year anniversary. And I guess that's sort of a city code thing to do. So yeah, we talked about how that could time up together. Chief Day had, I'll say this, Chief Day really was thinking around the timing of that. He had brought that up not as a concern, but as like something for us to think about. So maybe doing a press conference after the holidays when people are sort of tuned back in. and matching it up to maybe that memorial time. So I hear what you're saying, like, how we have that discussion here and matching up. And, something that came to my brain when you were saying that is, um, when we have these, kind of heavy, hard conversations of just, uh, being careful of the trauma we're sort of like bringing up again, and yeah, what kind of space we can cultivate to honor the sensitivity around that. And so, I think the memorial is the city's doing that. Um, and we talked about the recommendation, yeah, lining up with that, but also sort of being separate. But as the timing is, yeah, I think it can all come together.
I wanted to touch on too, the memorial, from what I read to happen in the park will have to be guided by, I guess, the Parks and Rec department in order to handle that. Because right now, I believe there's like a temporary memorial, I would say, that's like located on the street corner where that happened. And, I wanted to just read this comment real quick.
And Stephanie has her hand up as well.
Yeah, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Stephanie.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone knows that we're working with the survivors and the family members related to the Normandale shooting, and really trying to be mindful and let them help inform and lead in that conversation on what a memorial looks like, what it to make sure it's meaningful to them. So that's a process that's ongoing, and we're hoping that there may be an opportunity to bring those conversations to some fruition. But, as I think I've said in other meetings, that, there were so many folks impacted in that tragedy, and there are lots of different places where people are in their grief. But I just wanted to make that clear, that we're really trying to be collaborative and help make sure that they're leading that conversation. So that work continues on.
Thanks, Stephanie. And I think the intention here was just to share an update about that work in process. But PCCEP will absolutely have meetings in January or February devoted to this topic if the committee decides to advance a recommendation. So there would be more discussion about finding all of this alignment, what else is going on with the city's work to create that memorial and honor the anniversary, et cetera, when that time comes. So plenty of time to air out some of these details as well. But it is in process. Yeah. Okay, so moving along. So just kind of little bit of a retrospective here on 2024. We don't have a ton of time. But I just wanted to create a little bit of space as far as PCCEP members and even let's keep it to PCCEP members actually. As far as any lessons learned, reflections you want to share, especially in light of the conversation we're about to have, which will be sort of that priority setting, project planning for next year, and the work that we want to carry forward from this year into next year. So kind of looking at what's on the screen, does anyone have any reflections they'd like to share about a specific project, general process things, anything?
I think it was about halfway through the year when we really started using working groups more so than we had prior. And I felt that that was very productive. It seemed like dividing and conquering instead of, trying to herd everybody into all the topics and conversations really worked well. I know we have a lot of priorities, and I know it's really hard to focus on them, but I did feel like somewhere along the way, sort of more consistent sort of boundaries or focus areas to keep us progressing on the topics that we really find important and not spending so much time on topics that are going to take away from the time that we need to. So.
Similar, mine was not so much working groups, but it's related. It was the recommendation process. I think we got, think we got that down, if not mostly down, because I think we used to have, we used to like try to copy edit in meetings and that did not work at all. So yeah, I would say that I would call that a success in 2024.
I agree. That's gotten a lot better.
Kip, go ahead.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Actually, both. I find the working group super helpful for focus, and getting work products together that are in a more formed fashion that we can then discuss in the meetings, and get input and then refine. I think one thing that worked extremely well, especially around the PSR recommendation, was the town hall and the format of it. I thought that worked extremely well. What I do think could be improved on, and this goes back to our conversation with Judge Simon, we hope to have, is that it is putting the time and effort into the committees themselves, the working groups, different conversations. It's also really hard to engage and get community involved, and having more resources to optimize that would be extremely helpful. I'm hoping that as we go into 2025, we have the opportunity to engage with the new city council, inform them on the work that we do, and hopefully leverage their roles as community representatives to have more people engage on a more regular basis. I think would be extremely useful, so that we get a broader range of input and um, help us with our focus areas.
Thanks, Kip. Yeah. This is Ashley again. I wanted to kind of be thinking about this conversation. Things that have come to mind, and I think things we talked about last week together were, the work groups. Those were really, I think, successful in terms of effective use of time and just moving things along so we could, not come to a meeting and not have sort of any progress, a public meeting. But I think, just being cognizant of, being having readouts or updates from those work groups into the community space, and just reminding ourselves that we translate that work into, so the public can understand how we're cultivating those conversations and decisions. And then with that, and I think something we talked about last week, and is just how do we create like a structure of that process to carry on, so it's like an institutional knowledge. So as new members come and we all filter out, like, how does this recommendation process sort of stand the time and become something that PCCEP is doing? And I think we've talked about that being part of the plan. So, that's for, as we get into the future conversation about future stuff, I think about that, of just, creating a process for this institutional knowledge to continue on. So this is what PCCEP does. This is how we come to recommendation. It's, this kind of input. We need these kind of variables to think about. And so, look forward to that conversation more.
So everyone's looking at each other like, do you got something? Do you got something? So welcome, Dwate. Good to have you here. any other reflections about the work that we've done and the recap of that work? Okay. So the slides, are we ready to go back to slides?
I think we have a break
Yeah,
scheduled.
I think so.
People. We're kind of at a very meandering pace, which means maybe like a snack break.
Huh.
Yeah, maybe like a stretch your legs break.
It's kind of awkward to eat during the.
Yeah.
There we go. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a break. We got a 10-minute break here. So we are at 6:54 right now. And so 7:04 is when we will be back. Thank you. It is 7:04. Let's go ahead and resume. All right, so this next portion of the meeting, we're going to begin to think ahead and where you all want to go and what you all would like to do. Next slide, please. So as we begin this conversation, we have some great slides ahead that are going to outline some different areas that we can consider. But it's important that we have some framing, and the setup for that framing is a really good grounding. So the way that we'll ground here, no worries, I'm not going to ask you all to take deep breaths or anything like that. But I will ask you all to kind of think about your purpose in being on the PCCEP team, the PCCEP committee. What brought you to PCCEP? What keeps you at PCCEP? Kind of bring that to mind as we begin to think about these framing questions. So we'll report out and kind of share periodic with a few folks some of these framing questions. So in grounding yourself in what keeps you here and what brought you here, what are your goals for the year ahead as a PCCEP member? What stands out? Yeah, if you got something, go ahead and anything pops into your head.
Looking at me. All right. Well, this is Ashley again. I really like this question. I think I'd love to hear, at least definitely from everybody here, all the PCEP members, that question of what brought you here? What are your goals? I don't think that's something we share very well or out as much. And I wanted to reflect on mine. So yeah, I've been here a member for about 2.5 years now. And when I was approached by Samir to be on PCEP when I applied for the PAC a long time ago, when I was interested in understanding police accountability. And I was kind of thinking this question earlier today as I was trying to come into this space. There's kind of various reasons why I wanted to get involved, but I've always felt like, well, especially when Samir had approached me about the PCEP role, and I'm like, well, even the PAC role, when I applied for it, what expertise I have, like what perspective as a white facing woman who lives, in a wealthy neighborhood. So I just, what perspective can I bring to this space? And for me, I think it's been about wanting to learn more. I think my vision of safety in the city and that being really important to me as a mom, as a community member, as a volunteer, as somebody who's going to live their life here, that I think that's like, that's why I'm here. I'm allowed to be here. But what I really want to aspire to be, my goals is like, how do we continue to bring in this community thought into policing? I truly think that we all have the capacity to help take care of each other. And kind of, I do see a vision of like reshaping how policing is done in a large city, a large urban area, because as a neighborhood emergency team member, which honestly is what brings me to my civic engagement, I really truly believe that like our neighbors are the ones that get us out of disasters, and just that like cultivation of connection with each other, allows us to just feel safer with each other, but also like be available to help each other in disasters, if it's a disaster like an earthquake, or if it's just even a pandemic, right? Like how do we show up for each other? And I think being in the space is just making sure that the city and the bureau kind of understand the importance of community input into how we feel like safety should operate in our city. And I know, like, again, I say that with the perspective of like privilege for sure, because I know there's parts of the city that policing is whether needed or whether it's, what the community needs or wants. I think we just really need to, this space really needs to keep cultivating healthy discord for us to listen and learn from all types of perspectives to understand how people want to feel safe in the city. That was kind of really long, Triad, but I just thinking of goals of like what we do here is to bring community together to get, either full picture of what's going on in the city with policing or hot topics, or also just to like lend their perspective of like what they think safety is. I think we do a really good job of that. And I really like want us to continue that. I really want us to like, when we're thinking about what topics to bring to the space, like, okay, but what does it do to bring community in? And what does it do to bring community to that topic? Or is it just, because some of us can feel really powerful and passionate about something, but how is it? I just want us to continue to be sharper and continue to think about like, okay, but is that what PCEP should be not talking about, but like working on? Is that what the community how do we bring the community into that? And I know that can be hard because I know we all want to bring our passions here, but like, how do we center that community, like that full community perspective? I'm gonna stop talking. Keep going down rabbit hole. You guys, community.
I love the progression of that. You went from inner to community member to co-chair. We wrapped at co-chair there. I loved it. Kip.
Can you please turn up the volume?
Yeah, we can speak directly into the mic.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, Kip, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Yeah, Kip Silverman. I mean, I feel like this past year and the opportunity to work as co-chair on settlement and policy, I learned a ton. I stepped into that role pretty new on PCEP, and I think the main goals that I have going forward are to continue on with engagement, looking at the issues we're dealing with. I got involved as learning about PCEP, seeing an opportunity to hopefully use some of the skills that I have and use in work and in community involvement within this work, also primarily to solve for the consent decree and lawsuit from Department of Justice. So my main focus has been, and why I got involved in settlement and policy, is to what can we do to bridge the remaining articles of the consent decree and hopefully get that solved so that we have a baseline to start building from. And again, all the other aspects of it, the other parts that come into play, such as the PSR recommendation, which I think was some of our really great work that we've done, and alternatives to engagement so that the police can focus on their main reason for being part of the city, dealing with crime and response, and keep building outwards on that. So it's really those two things that are always front and center: is what is the community expressing? How does it dial into how we get beyond this lawsuit? And what does the future framework look like for ongoing efforts connecting community to the city, to the PPB, and all the other folks involved? So that's really why I'm here and where my brain kind of sits. And yeah, I hope to just keep contributing and doing good work.
Yeah. Thank you, Kip. All right, so for this next question, we'll have about two people. Oh, we have, yes, wonderful. Thank you, Tia. And just for those in the room using the mic, just make sure you hold the mic close to your mouth so it can carry well.
This is Tia Palafox, and what brought me to PCEP was I was feeling really frustrated in the 2020 protests around racial injustice, and I contacted Mike Schmidt to give him some of my ideas, and he recommended that I apply for PCEP. So I applied in 2020. I was also really concerned about mental health issues at that time, and what keeps me in PCEP is I really enjoy the connection and outreach, and continue to send out as many advice as I can from an outreach list that we have put together, and really want to continue outreach and connection. It's what I enjoy the most about PCEP.
Yeah, thank you, Tia. Go ahead.
So keeping in mind just like what brought me here and what keeps me here, and answering those questions, I think everybody should feel safe in their community and should have the resources that they need. And so it's been really important work for me to keep that in mind as I work with PCEP. So some concrete things that I really want to accomplish is really that PSR support, because community work doesn't always look like police, or community safety doesn't always look like police, and I think that that's important. And then also, I just think the community needs to have a seat at the table when decisions are being made about their safety and what that means. And I think that's where PCEP really has a role, and that's more of a goal. But the concrete thing is really that PSR and other things that we can do to work with PPB to make sure people are truly safe.
Yeah, thank you so much, Leslie. Go ahead, Odelia.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Leslie. And I think that PCEP is a unique committee and has unique power in the city. And I think there's more ways that we can use that. And so I think just being very intentional about what it is that we have access to that maybe community like members don't, and how we can help bridge that. I think that's something that's really important to think about, and kind of like leverage that. And then kind of going off of that, I think I would love, and this is something I think about as well for myself, but I think we often look at current systems and current ways things are being done and best practices. And I think we can get more creative in how we make recommendations or what we think about in ways we think things can change. So I would just, yeah, I'm always like encouraging myself to think outside of the box and outside of what already exists, and what do we want to imagine, and what do we want to make us feel safe that currently doesn't exist. And then lastly, I guess, ensuring that the work we're doing here is sustainable and long term, and like creates real meaningful change and isn't just like, I don't know the word, but yeah. Yeah, a band-aid. Yeah, kind of.
Devontae Manyweather. I've been on PCEP, I want to say maybe 5 months now, maybe 6. One thing I've noticed is that time really does pass quickly, and I've tried to focus on continuing to familiarize myself with the intricacies of the settlement agreement, so that I can find a way to better leverage not only my purpose for being on PCEP and wanting to be a part of PCEP, but to find ways to I guess create tangible solutions and create tangible progress. I think is really what my focus is. Um, I don't want to leave PCEP with just ideals and wishes that the city is a better place and that things are safer somehow. I want to have a way that I can actually quantify that. And so I think that PCEP is a really great way to come together with, my colleagues here, and to, all of us come from very diverse experiences and upbringings. Um, um, yeah. Yeah, all of us have a very diverse wealth of experience. And so I'm looking forward to being able to just continue to work with everyone as we get to know each other more closely, and really learn from each other. I'm excited about being able to temper my perspectives against the perspectives of my colleagues, to really find a middle ground, to make sure that we are really being a voice for not just one part of the community, but the community as a whole. There are pieces, portion of the community that, there's a lot of contention with law enforcement because of a lack of trust. So I would really like to find ways to, put more community events together, to create opportunities for law enforcement and community to mend and heal, to learn to trust one another, because I do think that there is trust that has to, be garnered on both sides, for a real healthy relationship to be created, in safety within the city of Portland, to really start to um, encompass everyone's idea of safety. And so that's kind of, I guess, in a nutshell, what really my desire is. I'm just looking forward to continuing to learn more, and to, continue to try to put forth some really comprehensive recommendations that, garner powerful positive change. So
Wonderful. So, just one comment before you jump into, but we definitely want to hear from you. We see the questions or the hands goes up from the community members. Definitely appreciate your engagement. If you have a question you want to ask, you can always drop it in the chat, but we're leaving the community questions towards the comment area for right now, so that we can get through setting up this agenda, or this map for next year. Go ahead.
Just really quickly, Carrie Driver, my goal for the year ahead as a PCEP member is to take all the wonderful learnings that happened during the first year, which really it's like night and day. New members, don't worry. It's and build on those to accomplish what PCEP sets out to do and does a great job of, but on a bigger scale, engaging more community members, being able to reach new audiences, different audiences, and keep our current audiences engaged, so that we can be that clearinghouse and gathering place on a bigger scale.
You're not obligated to answer the question. So if you're still ruminating on the question, you may continue to ruminate. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just has to settle. Yeah. Any other PCEP members who have reflections on either their goals for the year as a PCEP member, or any concrete things you'd like to accomplish in this next year? Again? All right. Next slide, please. So now we're going to begin to take an inventory of the content and process focus areas that PCEP members have expressed interest in working on, ongoing and new. Dory?
Okay. All right. So this is the part of the meeting where we're going to kind of put everything on the board. This is not quite exhaustive, but I try to put everything into buckets. And this is just the content slide. There's another slide for process areas. But yeah, what I really want to do is just like look at how many ideas either are in progress or have been put out there as topics that PCEP is interested in working on. And again, there's I'm not sure the best way to do this because there are two slides, one for content, one for process, and the process one is potentially even longer. And so as those of you who have been on the committee for some time know, things always move slower than we expect. And even thinking about kind of our recap of 2024, I would say we can get maybe 3 to 4 to maybe 5 good recommendations out the door, which heavily correlates with the community engagement work that we do, the content of our meetings. You know the drill by this point. Those of you who have been here, those of you who are new, you'll fall into the rhythm. But so in terms of content, that's kind of the pace it seems. And then as far as process, there are some bigger things than usual on the table for this year. Let's jump ahead to that slide actually. So as you all have noted, both as PCEP members and as people living in the city, we are amidst a government transition. We have a brand new city council and a new mayor. And then of course, PCEP has also been talking about codification, making PCEP a permanent city program in city code that will last beyond the settlement agreement. So all of that just exists. Like you will have to navigate the government transition and the new relationship with the mayor. I think it is a big priority for you, we know, to establish relationships with the council. And we know codification is also a priority. So that's all in the background as well. And that's kind of different from previous years in terms of the amount of process stuff on the plate. So looking at all of this, I'm hoping to have a discussion starting to pull out some of the, what is really bubbling to the surface, what are the most urgent priorities, and how can we as a group start to visualize what our year might look like. So what are we going to be hitting first? What content do we definitely want to tackle? Which of these process things are most important to do first? I think they're actually all really important, but we got to create some order. So yeah, that's my spiel, and we can look at the slides. Just tell us which one you want to look at. Initial comments. Oh, the caption is hiding it in the room. It says PCEP community engagement staff or contract. Just a different option for what community engagement support could look like.
Yeah. Looks like folks are digesting what's on the slide.
So Carrie said the PCEP community engagement staff point would be covered at the status hearing. Yes, I would say that is a good start to that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we'll move back to the previous slide. And then I also see Kip's hand.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, on the slide we were just looking at, it almost feels like to me they're primarily in the top layer feels like the biggest areas that we should focus, and then the next layer slightly lower priority, and then the bottom still important but also important. So I feel like this is a great agenda of things to prioritize. The codification is critical, relationships with the new council offices, mayor, especially community outreach. I think those are top items that really need to be figured out for us to continue being effective and becoming more effective at the effort that we put in. So that's all I wanted to say on that slide.
Okay. It looks like Viva's got their hand up. So Viva, can you go ahead and go? And then we have a few hands in the room.
Yeah, I just wanted I like agree with what Kip is saying. It just happens that that top layer is sticks out to me as well. Specifically, the community outreach plan. I think that my personal preference would be to really highlight that and see if we can get some formal mechanisms for community engagement in place, and specifically ones that don't require people to meet us where we're at. Figure out if there's other mechanisms that we can use to really have a broader audience. I know that theme's come up a few times now. I don't need to repeat it, but also thinking outside of just these meetings themselves or even social media. We're going to reach, a subpopulation and would really hope to get as much diverse perspectives as possible.
Yeah, I agree with that, Viva. And I'll just clarify so from a staff perspective, my vision of the PCEP community outreach plan, which I don't think that's a term we've necessarily spoken to each other, but it's something I would like to create. But I would like, to me, that goes hand in hand with the staff or contract for community engagement. So what I would like to do is work with either a future staff member or potentially contract out some support for two people who specialize in community engagement and outreach to help us develop that in consultation with the members.
Yeah. Appreciate that clarification, Dory. I see Leslie and then Devontae and then Carrie.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was gonna say, Dory, because I feel like it looks the community outreach looks very different if we have support, whether if we have support than if we don't, of a dedicated staff person. So I would also agree with, putting that kind of first. And then if not, we've talked about having like a contractor or somebody that has those skill sets that we're looking for.
Thank you, Leslie. Go ahead, Devontae.
So for me, I actually value clarified subcommittee structure and purpose greatly. Something that was mentioned very recently that really resonated with me is that there seems to be overlap in some of the topics that come up between the two subcommittees that we currently have. And so I don't think that I've officially joined either subcommittee, but I just attend all the meetings that PCEP has because I don't want to feel like I'm missing information that might be crossover. So really zeroing in on how we can optimize each subcommittee so that they can be as effective as possible. And then, whether or not we're going to be adding any additional subcommittees and what those purposes will be. I think that is something that next to codification maybe should take precedent, because I think that if we don't fully identify how we want to function as a group, that building relationships almost seems like something that should happen afterwards. We can't really do anything with the relationships if we aren't functioning the way that we should be functioning.
Go ahead, Carrie, and then Odelia.
Thank you. I also want to prioritize clarifying subcommittee structure and purpose, and I see that in cahoots with the improved group communications and the steering committee, because all three of those things affect each other. And yes, it would be great to have, like when we were reviewing the 2024 pros and cons, the struggle I had was with the focus, and I think that those three contribute to that.
Yeah, so I also agree with that. I think like these are all crucial, and I don't think internal work has to like all happen before we do anything externally, but I think that they do really go hand in hand, and I think it would be crucial to work on and rethink how we engage with one another and how we engage with content so that we can show up in these spaces and be more impactful and have the process be more smooth. So they kind of go hand in hand for me. And I think that that's going to be like a learning process of how that all works. But I do think some restructuring is crucial to PCEP as a whole and the work we do.
Mhm. Go ahead, Mate.
I think Carrie definitely had a really good point in that there is definitely a synergistic relationship between clarifying the subcommittee structures, improving group communication, and also reestablishing the steering committee. Improving group communication, I think, is a massive one. You know, we have new members that have just recently joined, and then we have members that have been on the committee for 2 years, and then I've been here for 5 or 6 months. So I think that the difference in the amount of understanding and comprehension of the potential that PCEP has, and just the knowledge of the settlement agreement and maybe even some of the governmental structure and how those other entities affect PCEP and its work it varies greatly. And so ways for us to ensure that our communication is such that newer members are able to, you know, assimilate the information as quickly as possible and aren't kind of just left to their own devices. Of course, we can always rely on Dory, who's a wealth of knowledge, but I think that, you know, all of our individual experience and understandings also might have a great impact because we've all been where, you know, the newer members have been at one point in time. And so we all understand how overwhelming the, you know, digestion of the information can be. So and then we'll all eventually be off of PCEP, right? So I'm making sure that we are creating something that can be left for members that might come after us, as far as contact information for, you know, different resources within PPB, within the city, within, you know, any contacts that we find, making sure that we're creating some kind of living document or living network that others will be able to benefit from and utilize so that they aren't having to build those from the ground up once they start. So that's something that I would like to say is a very tangible goal of mine for the next year is to contribute to creating that.
Right. Tia?
This is Tia. I was thinking as you were talking that I believe that when we began the community engagement subcommittee, we were formed to really plan the events like the town halls and be more of the group that would do the engagement as far as putting together the town hall and different meetings going into different areas, as Viva just was saying. And Jorge and I have been working on the youth list for the high schools, getting into the high school committees, community, and we'll continue to work with the youth work. But I'm just thinking about at the beginning when we, when we formed the community engagement subcommittee out of the behavioral health youth, I feel like a lot of things emerged from that, and that was going to be our goal. And we've moved away from that because we are doing a lot more agenda and content area in the community engagement subcommittees. I was just remembering that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tia. Other committee members and thoughts on the process or order or what should be prioritized? Even if you just have beginning ideas or questions, that would be great. This would be a great place to add that. Each time you move your hands, it's like, you want the mic?
No.
You're like, no, no.
This is starting to give me a picture for this one. It is kind of what I was. Can you go back, Liz? Liz, why can't you read my mind? You can like 75% of the time. We're pretty good. Yeah, it's pretty close to kind of what I was envisioning, at least for the first couple months of the year. I think We'll get to this towards the end, but I think in late January or February, we are overdue for a longer retreat, which is always a delight to schedule. But I think what we really need is just some longer time to kind of work out some of the restructuring stuff and how you all want the steering committee to work. And the steering committee would be a monthly meeting among leadership to set all of the agendas for that month and make sure there is alignment and no duplication, and that it's kind of charting the course as like a full organism of a committee, not just individual groups doing their own thing. And also talking about some of this group communication stuff, like what is needed, how do we do that, how are we making sure that we're communicating inclusively and making decisions inclusively in the weird fragmented hybrid world that we're in. And you also all have to use city technology, which makes it even harder, or city accounts. So I think we can knock out a lot of that stuff at a retreat, at least make decisions and then put things in process early in the year. I think we'll be working on the relationship pieces right off the bat, just because we will. um, and that'll be, we'll just have to figure out, but I'm just kind of trying to place things in a timeline. And then, yeah, I think we'll put some irons in the fire with the community engagement support. And I will work with sort of my team to kind of push on that too. And the other pieces, I don't know if we've spoke to us directly yet. Just summarizing what I heard and what made sense to me. Yeah. Agreed. It's not as chaotic as it looks. Yeah. You don't like my slides?
This is Ashley. Dory, I know last week we kind of did some exercises together where we thought of ideas. Are we envisioning, like thinking about improving group communication? I know there was a section about structure, and I know the group I was in, we had some ideas about what that could look like. So I guess there's already some thoughts generated, and I'm wondering, are you talking about the retreat being a place where we bring that together and this discussion together to really, okay.
Yeah. The only thing that I think maybe may make sense is that between now and the retreat, it would be a good idea for us to think about like what subcommittees we might be wanting, if it makes sense to add more and things like that. Maybe get some information about historically what the subcommittees have been, and that way we can come prepared to the retreat for discussion. That would be my only add-on.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Also, things that I can put out there for you to digest beforehand are like, what are the implications of adding another subcommittee? What is our staff capacity to have? How many can we really do? And so, it, yeah, there are lots of considerations when it comes to things like that. And then the other thing I forgot to mention is that is something I think we should do prior to PCCEP elections, which we'll also do early in the year. Yeah. And all of the positions will be up for re-election, so that's 6 seats.
I think also the bylaws have some information about subcommittees of, I think like just every PCCEP member must join at least one. And we did that very intentionally so that folks could be engaged. So yeah, just want to put that out for the new folks.
I was wondering if we shouldn't spend a bit of time like on the content areas. Because I feel like we've kind of made a pretty big dent in the process areas. So there were a lot of things that were in the content area. So just wanted to hear people's thoughts on some of these aspects. Some of them we spent a lot more time on than others since I've been here. And so just wondering where we were at as far as, are we feeling content with some of the work we've done? And I mean, there's obviously always more work to do, but are there any areas that we want to explore that maybe we haven't as much? Just wanted to hear other member thoughts.
And I keep forgetting, but Leslie, yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we've already done some work on some areas. There's a couple ways that I propose that we might be able to look at this. One of them is like, in order, and as I say this, I'm reading that, I'm like, they're kind of, a lot of them are very big lifts, but like thinking about what might be a smaller lift and what might be bigger lifts and what might need more support or more information, and kind of organizing them that way. Also thinking about, as you say, Devontae, the progress we've made in some of them, and that could help us kind of figure out how to work through some of these. And if any of these have hard deadlines, kind of taking that into account, because I think some of these do, but maybe other ones don't so much.
Say that this was just a few of the areas and that you just put some of them up, or is this all of them that we're looking at?
Tia asked if I had put all of the content areas up here. I don't think there's any possible way to be truly exhaustive. But this was everything that we identified last week as being like a something either ongoing or a future content area. Tia, I know you mentioned the contact surveys and keeping an eye on those. I didn't put that on here because I see that more as if it goes, if the city follows through on the commitments it's made, PCEP doesn't have any additional role to play there. So that's more of just keeping an eye on it. And as far as I'm aware, I do think I saw it in a budget somewhere recently. So I think it is in the works.
Friday, we have a working draft of the RFP that should be approved very quickly.
Carrie said that as of Friday, there's a working draft of the RFP for the contact survey pilot that PCEP recommended. Okay, Tia, was there something else on here that you thought was missing?
I just know that Cordelia and I, when we talked about what, sorry, okay. This is Tia again. I just know that Odelia and I, when we talk about brainstorming agendas, we put it together on a spreadsheet. I didn't know if the spreadsheet items are coming up on this, or how.
These are things that the full committee at some point or another has identified as a content area. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see, this is Noelle cut hair. I don't see on here as far as I can see about communications within the community. And the reason I bring that up is because, you know, there's a lot of acronyms that we're using here. PSR, RFP, and I know that those, you know, obviously like there's something that's been going on, but you know, if a community member walked in here and it's their first time being here, how is that understandable to them? You know, and we have to really think about the language we're using to make sure it's easy to understand. You know, we're being transparent, it's digestible, and that's something that I think is really important when we talk in public meetings here, you know. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that is probably reflected, well, I think that's a point well taken in general for the meetings. And then I would say that I would hope that that would be reflected in more of the process slide part. So I hope that we've captured that sentiment, which is just general like community outreach plan, reflecting needs of broader community, etc. But yeah, you're completely right. That is a process area that needs improvement.
Yeah, so I think I'm trying to remember when we did this last year and the things we actually followed up with that we had time for. And then new things that came along that we made recommendations for that like at this point in time we weren't even aware of. So another thing to just be conscious of when thinking about these. And then I guess this is a question for the whole committee. But I think each one of us has like certain things that we're more interested in working on, right? Out of this list of 11, I think I counted that right. But yeah, I think like how do we want to go about talking about that? Do folks want to list off what they're interested in? Because I want to also make sure everyone gets a say. So does anyone have an idea of how we can do that? Not vote, but just like sort of. Yeah, I don't know.
Um, yeah, I definitely think that that is an extremely good point, Odelia. This is Devonte, by the way. Um, I don't know if maybe it would make sense for maybe people to identify the one that is most important to them and then maybe then go through a process of elimination, whether we vote on what we do like or we vote on what we don't think is important. But then if we do that, then does that eliminate that person's ability to work on that on an individual level would be my only concern. Um, if it's something that doesn't necessarily require heavy lifting from the entire group, as some topics are more intensive than others and require more assistance from the group as a whole. Does that bar that member's ability to work on that to some extent? That would be my only concern.
Leslie again. I guess I'm wondering, do we have to make that decision now, or is that something that we can do in the retreat? That I almost see this as, do we all agree that these are content areas we could focus on in 2025? Or are we missing any that we all think are important? And then kind of to Devonte's point, be, thinking about what would we want to work on in 2025 and kind of prioritizing it for ourselves between now and then.
Yeah, I would say what I would do is think about this similar to the process slide. Like these are all important. These all could be topics, but like thinking about mapping out the year, if you had to choose what to work on first, what would it be? Just more of like an order thing.
Some cases, we already have a lot of work behind these.
Just thinking in the moment and don't know if it's the best strategy, but we have a lot of work behind several of these topics, some topics, consent searches, pretext stops, crowd control, surveillance. So it makes sense to me to say, where are we on those? If they're still priorities, what's the next step before they go stale? And then I think I brought up traffic safety, street racing, which we've never touched before. And I'm willing to say we can eliminate that one if it's not a priorities for other people, because we'd be starting from scratch and we've got so much else to do.
One that I've just kind of on that same train of thought, one that I've not heard talked about that I know that I have mentioned is the PPP hiring process. And so I've not necessarily heard others express an interest in that, but I myself, I think, would be interested in it regardless because once again, I do feel like the disparities we see in interactions between law enforcement and particular demographics in the community are a direct result of the demographics of the employee force, of the police force, right? So I think that transparency within the hiring process to ensure that it truly is an equal opportunity for all individuals who may be interested in, you know, um, law enforcement as a career, you know, that everything is equitable because, you know, yes, they are pillars of the community, but law enforcement itself, they are community members. And so to ensure that the force reflects community, I think that there has to be, I don't want to say equity, but I believe it is something that should be examined. That's just my perspective.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just gonna also throw out there, not to complicate things, but there's also plenty of opportunity if folks are interested in learning more about something to see, you know, whether there's a recommendation there. I know I'm always happy, and I know PPB is always happy to facilitate that if there's a conversation or a meeting or you know any kind of review. So please just keep that in mind that you can make that request at any time as opposed to necessarily, you know, putting it in a specific category of having to make a recommendation. Just want to make sure everybody knows that that is a resource that's always available to them.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. This is Noelle Cut here speaking again. I just wanted to respond to what Devante said, and I think you know he's really on point with that as far as looking into like the hiring processes, and that's something you know I am interested in as well. I think it would be really good to be a part of that and maybe have BPP be a part of showing that to the committee. You know, the opportunity for a ride along and being part of the training process or the academy being there in person is an opportunity that we have. And obviously, since it's the holidays, I don't think that's something I'm able to do right now, but I'm really looking forward to doing that next year. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing some discussion about identifying the things that are ongoing. Sounds like there's some interest in learning more about the hiring process. I think to Stephanie's point, like that the work there might begin with some conversations and then like so meetings around the city, right? And Stephanie is always super helpful in getting those set up for us and identifying good people to talk to, and usually we get great engagement there. So yeah, maybe that topic could start in that way. If a couple of people are really interested in that, I see that as yeah, I think that that could easily start that way. Um, consent searches, pretext stops, kind of in the same category. Um, crowd control, ongoing. Um, one thing Leslie had mentioned, there being time sensitive things. The only one that maybe two that strike me as time sensitive would be if PCEP is interested in some way being informed about the PPA contract negotiation, that would be time sensitive. And then the PPP community engagement plan, I believe if you were to do some sort of review or submit comment, that might be time sensitive as well. Oh, and of course the Normandale recommendation we discussed being potentially in alignment with that anniversary. So those three strike me as time sensitive. So I'm just kind of trying to put things into categories. Time sensitive, ongoing work, and new work. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so in line with that, I think right now, I think it's important to keep working on the Normandale recommendation. I think we owe it to the community to kind of follow through with that process. And I think that I don't, yeah, I guess like I've said it before, but I still don't know exactly what that should look like. I think we agree on like what the first step should look like as like an acknowledgement. But if this is like a process flaw, like the question is like, how are we going to / do we want to address that? And so for me, I think that's an important thing to continue working on. And then whenever I see things like this, I think I get more lost instead of having more clear direction. Sorry, Dory. No, just like all the options. I'm like, can we just do them all? But that wasn't supposed to be insulting, but it was. No. Okay. Yeah, so anyways, I think me personally, I'm interested in surveillance. I think that there's not a lot of rules and regulations around that. I think the auditors report on surveillance from I forget when, a few years ago, I think. It's really interesting. And I'm also, oh God, interested in looking into the PPA. And again, that's another thing where it's unclear what we can do with that. And yeah, I'll stop.
That was actually going to be a question that I had. This Devonte is I don't recall exactly what the obviously I know that there's interest in the PPA contract negotiation, but like Odelia mentioned, I don't know to what extent we can even be a part of that or make inquiries. But I guess I'd be curious to know what the interest is for that, anyways. If anyone, not that I don't believe that there should be or shouldn't be, I just for my own knowledge.
Yeah, so I think we bumped into this a lot when we were looking into Portland street response work. And we felt like the public requested or would like to see certain things happen. And it was like certain things just couldn't happen because they were in the bargaining agreement between the PPA and the city. So there's like decisions made that we don't have control over, such as like if someone has a weapon, no one can respond except police. And like that was a question we had, that if someone even like had it on them or near them, does that mean Portland Street Response can't respond to a crisis? And so I can't remember everything else, but a lot of things like that about who's like in what situation does it have to be a police response. And so that was like one of the major things that came up. Then there's like, yeah.
To add to that, this is Leslie again. To add to that, we also ran into that with the body worn camera issue. So there's like certain things when we were, talking about earlier, like communities should have a seat at the table when it comes to their safety. And there's been instances where that hasn't been the case because of that agreement. So that's where the interest comes from.
I think Devonte's question is what would PCEP's role be, if I'm hearing you right, Devonte? Like not so much what some of those issue areas are, but what role could PCEP play in this? I think generally speaking, it's tricky, but I think it would fall into the general category of public awareness, public pressure. and transparency, Odelia says. So as far as a literal seat at the table, my understanding would be that that would not be possible. Yeah, sometime early in 2025. I would have to look up the exact date.
For me, it would be important for us to kind of be discussing maybe some of the current concerns with the contract itself, like us looking at that, and communicating that to the public via our meetings so that we know, I guess, what we should be causing pressure for and what we shouldn't, or what the community might have an issue with and what the community doesn't. If really our purpose there would be to be the voice of the community and apply pressure for the community, we have to know what their thoughts are. But I mean, I myself am not familiar with the current contract, so I don't know how familiar the community is either. So that would be something we have to start kind of getting the ball rolling on.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, if we want to work on it, we would need to work on it, like start. But it has to be a committee decision to decide to work on it. If we all feel like it would be a value, Leslie again, if we all feel like it would be a value and an initiative that we should work on, then yeah, the work would start.
Tia.
This is Tia Palafox, and I'm really interested in the Indigenous interactions with police. I followed up with Adam Murray after he and a team talked to us about the report and statistics around Indigenous interactions. And he suggested things like having sharing a listening session with the Indigenous community and providing a slide deck, possibly a podcast, sound bites on a social media platform. He gave us a lot of ideas, and maybe we could figure out a few things we can do to follow up with that conversation.
Just want to say something to that a little bit because I think I was really excited about that work too, and I think it is something that should be important, as it kind of came from like pre this group's work. It came from the community, but I just want to put out there that the city of Portland did have a director for tribal affairs, and they were let go, and they were kind of they had started to do some of that work, and so I don't know. I think there's like other conversations we need to have around how that work gets focused within the city. I just wanted to put that out there. And then I also wanted to make a comment on the conversation and just like how we like pull everything together because like I was looking at last year's list and I feel like I'm having the same feeling I had last year where it's like so overwhelming because you're like, I think a lot of this like the content areas, like, yeah, we've talked about it, but we haven't really dived into it. And so, yeah, if the next steps are to go and have some meetings and kind of do that work. I just want us to center like that energy and like, yeah, how do we move things forward with like full committee, approval and consent, but then also, and I think we've talked about this before as a group, for those new members that like how do we center what PCEP can do within those content areas? Like I think this conversation around PBA contract, like that's a really good example. And I think we're doing it right now with our rapid response team, our T work. We're trying to figure out like, does PCEP have a place to do any work? Because the work that we do when, last year in 2023, we pushed 3 recommendations forward. This year we pushed 3 recommendations forward, and that was a lot of work. And I think in the past we've talked about if we are going to focus on something, we want to see a clear outcome, whether it's that recommendation or that better relationship with the city, because it's a lot of work to get to that outcome. And so I know I just like thinking about like what's our passion areas, but then what's actually in PCEP's scope. I just like to kind of remind us like to center that.
Yeah. passing that night. I did want to know, Viva, we saw your hand a little bit ago, a while ago. Didn't know if you still had something you want to share, put out there.
To be honest, I can't remember when I raised my hand, but I am sitting here. I don't want to spend too much time on it, and we don't need to go into it now. But I'm wondering if there is an opportunity, and maybe it's the retreat. And I think it's kind of connected to what a few people have said now about maybe wanting or needing to know context behind some of these. I was at the last meeting, but I feel like I didn't contribute a lot because I didn't understand a lot of the conversations we were having. So I feel a little limited in really saying that one is my passion or not, because I'm making assumptions based on what I think the community engagement plan means versus actually knowing and not fully understanding why it's time sensitive or not. So just personally, it would be helpful to maybe have more time to really just get some context about what some of these things mean before I can say, yeah, this is my thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that this has been helpful for me, even if it's created more overwhelm for you in the short term. It has been helpful for me, and what I'm gonna do next is kind of sort through what you've shared and try to kind of map out what I think might be some options, and how these content and process priorities integrate. Um, and I think a lot of this too will be informed by some of those early process improvements that we make, right? So there's not a lot of pressure on this. This is really just to give everybody a sense as a group of very, very high level where we are with some of these issues. And even just saying, like, okay, well, it makes sense to kind of finish what we started on some of these things and maybe prioritize some, this here and there, whatever, and how it fits in with the process stuff too. It'll come together. Um, so yeah, I'm feeling like we maybe should wrap it up. I don't know about everybody else, but it is dark, cold, late. And I feel like we've gotten a lot of good stuff out of this, but we should move towards finishing. So I'm just gonna Liz, can you do the next slide? So just a reminder about some of we did that. Okay. So we do have the status conference hearing. I mentioned these things. So keep these very vague. This vague timeline in mind, but we'll figure all this out. So I think now we should move into open public comment. So both folks in the room with us and anybody online, this is the time for you to chime in about anything that's been discussed. So if you have thoughts about what PCCEP should work on, or anything that you heard discussed in this meeting and you want to share your opinion, now is the time. Or if you have any comments unrelated to the agenda of this meeting, you're also welcome to share those. Let's start with Barbara.
Barbara?
Thank you. Barbara Boshinsky, Portland Cop Watch. As far as the veil of darkness, can you clarify where PCCEP's at about it? Because I thought sort of a decision was put off, and then sounds like maybe there was one made.
What was put off?
The veil of darkness.
Like voted
data.
The recommendation?
Yeah.
Yeah, we PCCEP voted on it and submitted it.
Oh, because I thought I remember from the last meeting that you said you didn't have a full committee, so you weren't going to vote on it.
No, I believe Mr. Handelman said that.
Ah!
Yes, but we had PCCEP doesn't have formal rules about where things can be voted upon, and PCCEP had, I think, 9 or 10 members present in that meeting.
Oh, so because you had so many.
It's just about
got
the
it.
votes.
Okay.
It's just about the votes.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, let's go virtually. Babs?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, first off, I want to thank you all for your dedication. I've attended numerous of these meetings over the last couple years, and I am continually astonished by your commitment. I also want to thank Stephanie and Chris for being here tonight and listening intently. Okay, I'm going to put a timer on, so because I don't want to go over 2 minutes. So, and I know I was a blabbermouth in the chat tonight. And I am, as I said, cautiously optimistic. So anything that was talked about tonight that specifically referred to the new city council and and beyond that, the city council members in, for example, District 2, Northeast, where Normandale Park is. And wherever all of you live, this is our opportunity with this transition to engage on a regular basis with the council members in our districts. As I said, I'm in District 2, which is Northeast. Because part of this whole city transition, in my humble opinion, is to have more community involvement. Okay. And that's been lacking for, I don't know, 15 or close to 20 years now. So this is an opportunity. The other, I see a thumbs up. Thank you, Kip. This is also with the new structure. Oh, shoot, I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. So I believe I've had contact with candidates in all 4 districts. Okay, been kind of a political nerd over the last 2 years, and talking with them in person. My top issues: the environment and prevention of gun violence, specifically by police officers. So I've posed those questions to the people that I've talked with. And anyway, so I think that may be all. Thank you for listening to me. Definitely looking forward to following what happens on January 7th. I understand I might have to, I don't know, somehow do it on the phone or something. Technically challenged here, senior, but I will figure that out. And I will continue to follow your meetings. Oh, one last thing. I put this in the chat already. Please, I humbly ask, implore you to increase your engagement with neighborhood associations. Okay, I see a head nod. Because given these 4 new districts, the neighborhood associations have already gotten involved, and they will continue to be involved. But I also think it will take those of you, whatever district you're in, to reach out to those neighborhood associations. Okay, thank you for listening. I think I kept it to 2 minutes. Thanks, folks. Bye.
Thank you, Babs. Dr. Allen?
Just a response to the last one. There used to be an organization for neighborhood associations in the city. Is that still happening, or did they cut that out? Did they turn all those neighborhood associations just loose on their own, or is there a city connection?
There is still a city connection, although I think it might be restructured. But yes, I think that's all through our Office of Civic Life, and now the Vibrant Cities hub safety. I'm sorry, service area. But yes, I think there may be some reorganizing to align with districts, but it still does exist.
All right. So what I wanted to say is that one of the first things I did when I came to become a PCCEP groupie was to help Tia on the subject of Indigenous people, on the subject of making contact with the tribal people. And I think the city has fired 3 people in 3 years. And I pursued it. You know, I called a lot of offices to find out where I could find someone. I made a lot of calls, including to the tribal offices, because they were being they were being isolated. People didn't want to help me find them. And when I did find them, they didn't know if I was up to trouble or what. Eventually they warmed up and they're gone. So I just want to suggest, and I'm willing to be part of this, that we not make our total commitment to somebody the city hires. There are a number of tribal organizations with standing in the tribal communities. We don't have to make our sole contact with somebody from the mayor's office with their liaison to the tribes. We can find other ways of making a contact that the city can't fire.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. Antoinette, I see your name, your hand, and then we'll go to Dan after that.
I really want to acknowledge Dory. It's cold and it's wet, and you all made it there and gave us the grace and space to be here with you. So I will be so short and brief. And Samir, it's so good to see you. Is it politically okay to say welcome, brother? But what I want to say to you all at PCCEP, I look forward to these meetings. You model collaborative energy. It's just I'm inspired and encouraged. It's an Ubuntu African principle. We're all connected, city, government, beyond all of that. So I just want to commend you and thank you. I'm good.
Thank you, Antoinette. Dan?
Hi, this is Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm with the group Portland Cop Watch. And I didn't realize my phone has been unmuted this whole time. Sorry if I made any extraneous noises. You know, while I support all the support for this group and am very impressed always by the work you do, I do recall asking whether or not the veil of darkness policy was going to be put forward to the full committee for a vote. And I remember getting an answer to it that said, yes, that's what's going to happen. I looked up in your bylaws, and this may not be the most recent version, but the bylaws say subcommittees. Only members of the subcommittee may vote to approve reports and recommendations to be forwarded to the full PCCEP. So there are, in fact, rules about it. I don't know where the information came from that there are no rules about it, because there are, and it was definitely something that was very strictly held to. Because if you have a subcommittee meeting and not all members were there, and they were not aware a vote was going down, then you're having something going out in the name of the full committee that not everybody got to discuss or vote on. So I think it's very disturbing that you already sent that recommendation out. I don't disagree that most of the committee was there, but I think that from a process point of view, you should have brought it up tonight at your meeting to vote on it before you forwarded it, but it's too late now. So on that note, what I'm hearing is that there's a lot more stuff happening at these kind of work sessions that are not public. And I was kind of surprised at one of your last couple of meetings where it sounded like maybe the leadership team had discussed putting off codification without having a full discussion with the full committee or having that voted on. And I just feel like at the beginning there was a lot more cohesion, and the group really did work together. But I feel like a lot of this stuff is happening behind closed doors in ways that the public and even the police, who are supposed to show up at your meetings, can't listen to what you're saying or have input into it before you make decisions. And I want you to be very aware of that as you move forward. And I understand the urge to try to get things done and try to find ways to move things faster, but you're the community engagement wing of what's going on, right? You're not the Citizen Review Committee, you're not the Training Advisory Council, you're looking at community engaged policing. And you know, the more work you do without the public there, the less you're doing in community engagement. So I'm sorry to say something that sounds so negative, but again, I do appreciate all the work you're doing. I just want you to be aware of that. Also, one of the reasons I wasn't able to pay full attention tonight to the meeting is that we're working on the new Cop Watch newsletter. It should be out by the end of the month and up online early next year. Thanks.
So this is Ashley. I just wanted to speak to that really quick, Dan. I think I had noted earlier, I agree. I think that this work is happening in the work group and these discussions happening in emails. I think we do need to do a better job of reading those out to the public and when we're back in the public meetings. And I don't think it's unintentional, but yeah, like there's just things that we need to sort of, we need to get collaboration on, we need to get information on, and we have found it this past year, I think particularly, we've really leaned on that outside the public meeting space to kind of move stuff forward. But absolutely, we could do a better job of reading that information out at meetings. And I think we've noted that tonight, we've noted it last week when we were talking. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you, Ashley. We're gonna go to a comment here in the room and then we'll come back to online.
Hi, this is Barb Rainish here, member of the community, PCEP groupie for a couple of years now. There's a bunch of little bits I want to point out real quick. Since you guys talked about PSR specifically, I didn't see it on any of the slides and any of the little doohickeys. And you guys a little while ago said it was really important to you. And budget season is going to come up before you know it and be different than anything we've had before. So I would, if you guys are interested in supporting PSR, I would really start looking into how you guys can do that well, if you're interested in it. And certainly from the perspective of having a non-police response, it's pretty much what we've got right now besides, just depending on the situation. Stephanie's offer to answer all questions and what have you is totally awesome. And I really hope she'll be around next year or somebody will be in a similar situation to be able to do that. But I do want to point out that, that there's going to be all new people basically, or that you can, mostly new people, I guess, in January, not completely. I wanted to second what Noelle said about the onboarding for PCEP members. I think doing the ride-alongs and going to Community Academy really helps give a perspective that you don't have if you haven't done those things. I'm actually quite concerned that you want to have a steering committee that meets in private to set agendas. That doesn't seem like there was a steering committee before for sure, but it was open to anybody to show up. And I just kind of want to point out, sort of to second what Dan said, that you guys were talking about having community events. And then the next thing that was said is we only want to hear from committee members. So anyway, I've got a lot of things on here. The last one is we used to do a better job with the acronyms, and putting them into the chat when somebody uses them is one of the ways to do that. And if you guys have somebody that could do that, that might not be a bad, helpful thing. That's it for right now. Thanks. Oh, and hi, Samir. It's so good to see you.
That's an excellent transition. Go ahead, Samir.
Hi, this is Samir Canal. I use he, him pronouns. I am a community member, but I obviously am very familiar with PCEP in my former role as advisory boards and commissions manager for the Community Safety Division / Public Safety Service Area. And we'll take that with me as a member of City Council on January 1st, representing District 2. I just want to start by saying thank you to everybody who's a part of this. It's been really amazing to see this continue. I've been following along from a distance for the last 2 months, but I'm really excited to see everything that's been going on. Congratulations to all the new members who you may have met me during the interviews, but not subsequently. And welcome to the show. And when I say that, what I mean is I want to just say 2 things to you. One is as commitments. One is I think there is an interest in the entirety of the new city council, but certainly many of the folks have mentioned it to making advisory groups be a part of the process in a more expansive way than we've seen in the past. in terms of developing policy. And then for me personally, this is a part of the coalition of groups that we all need to be talking to in order to make policy. And what I mean by that is, yeah, I probably agree with a lot of the things you would recommend, but I don't think it's about finding people that are going to take the same ideas in as much as it's about taking people who will bring you in to the process. And so that's my commitment to you as we go forward. But that all starts on January 1st. So until then, I will just say it's great to see you all. I appreciate all the staff so much. You all know I've given you all your flowers privately, and I won't repeat it all here, but thank you. And to the folks who are committed to constitutional and effective policing, regardless of whether or not you are on this committee or not. I'm excited to work with you all and be someone who can help, whether it's continuing to post acronyms in the chat or anything else. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Samir. We have Odelia here in the room. Don't want to pass the mic to Odelia.
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to share something that's been in the news recently. And it's pretty heavy. It's about an incident of police violence. So this was something that happened 2 years ago, November 19th in 2022. Police shot Emmanuel Clark as police were searching for an armed robbery suspect, and Emmanuel Clark was going in a different direction than the suspect was, but was still pulled over, and people ran, and Emmanuel Clark was shot and killed by the police. And there was just the grand jury found that they weren't out of policy, but there was I gotta check the article so I don't say this incorrectly. But yeah, an internal affairs investigator said the officer failed to follow the Bureau's policy for using deadly force. So I think that's something, and from what I've read, that's really rare for investigators to find that through this process. But still, the investigators' findings were ultimately dismissed. And so I think for me, that brings up a lot of questions about, like, how does that process work? How can these things be dismissed if someone is saying a policy is not being followed? How can that be dismissed? Whose choice is that? Where is that kind of accountability? And I don't know if Stephanie or anyone from PPB has an answer to that, or Sarah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can touch on that really quick.
Okay.
The whole internal affairs process, especially when it relates to deadly force investigations, is probably a whole meeting's worth of information. To pack it into 5 minutes would do the whole process, excuse me, an injustice. But ultimately, the investigator is the investigator. That finding that they initially make goes to multiple other people in different branches. So the person's boss, a chief, IPR, they make a determination, and then that goes to a larger committee that includes community members as well, a 7-person committee that's called a police review board. And the police review board found 4-3 that the person was in policy and did not violate that. So there's multiple layers of checks and balance. And then the final layer of check and balance is the chief. And that PRB makes a recommendation to the chief and then ultimately the mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that while that happened, I think this is like a really crucial thing, and really, for me, that's tough to hear, just given what I know about what happened. And I think that's just like an important thing for PCCEP to follow up on, and really, like, that's why the settlement agreement exists, is like the harm that was caused, especially like to Black men, and that this is still something that's happening, obviously. And so how yeah, I guess just thinking through how we can kind of stay involved in this story and not let these things continue to happen. I don't know if PCEP can do anything about this in particular, and I know that there's like a new community board for accountability happening too, so that will change, but that's still like process things. And I don't know if anyone has thoughts on that. I know it's already past time too, but I just thought it would be important to bring up into
Yeah.
this space.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it to the space. We have one more community member who's had their hand up several times. Lori, I'm glad you put your hand back up. If you want to go ahead, Lori.
Thank you, finally. First of all, I would just like to thank all you guys for your work. I don't know what's going on with my speaker. However, I am driving. I can't do too much correction. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Lori, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm looking at the table right now. And going into 2025 and all the tables that I have sat at for many years, including this PCEP, I came to the table on the agreement around the police and getting the police cameras and all that kind of stuff. That basically the whole issue about that we were discussing was people that are getting affected by violence are people of color. And I don't feel like BCEP does a good job with reaching out to people of color. I mean, and pretty much none of the tables is being represented to make change in our community. You know, I'm a community leader on gun violence, and my son was shot in this community, and I have been at the tables since 2015, and prior to then that, you know, and the young lady was talking about the police report and how, you know, they just changed that or whatever they said. That's all the time, young lady. I mean, like they do it all the time. And so I just don't see any change happening in Portland, Oregon, or at the table. And I'm looking at this table, and you see, when I come to the table, I sit there. I have something that I'm bringing to the table, and that's a dead body. That's my son, you know. And I would like to see more representation from our community, African American people, families that are being affected by violence. And I would like to see more work of you guys reaching out to those families. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. I'm glad you were able to share your perspective and your comment. Okay, I think we're past time now, so let's go ahead and wrap up the public comment area. I'm going to turn it back over to Ashley to wrap up the meeting.
Yeah, great. Well, we had a good conversation, lots to ponder and more to come. So thank you so much. Besides the January 7th status hearing that we will be sending PCEP representation to, the next time we convene, the public will be Wednesday, January 15th for our settlement and policy subcommittee meeting. So check out the website for the agenda for that in early January. And I think that's it. Yeah, all the things. Yep, that's a wrap. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here online and in person. Take care. Have a good